And I was on a lot of Adderall, and I remember took 18 shots of espresso before our coffee meeting because
Oh my God.
on a dare with the barista. I thought after that conversation, it was probably the meth and all the caffeine. I was like, I think I'm famous. Like, I think
Trekking heavier, traveling light. There's one thing that's right wherever I go. That's where I am.
Welcome to This Week in Zoltan. I am Zoltan Kaszas this week. I am joined by Liz Glazer. Thanks so much for being on the show.
thank you for having me on the show. So, did you want to start?
Well, we were having this few things. One, I was intimidated to get into this conversation.
Really?
As soon as I looked up your bio, I wasn't before, and I did we did a show together at an apartment.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Fun.
Oh, yeah, I would love to have her on my podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got the coffees, and I'm sitting
Sure.
over there, and I'm like, let me read up. And I read all this stuff, so cool comedy stuff. I'm like,
Right.
nice, that's very cool, nice.
Sure.
And then law and I don't know what all the terms mean, but it looked like you have a master's and stuff.
Right.
And then
yeah.
I was like, now I'm intimidated.
Oh,
and then I
really?
met up with you in the lobby, and we've been talking since we sat down, and I'm like, no longer intimidated.
Oh,
Back
yeah.
to like normal.
Okay. First of all, thank you, I guess. But also, like, I live my life in a constant state of intimidation. So I really relate. But,
get
like,
it. Yeah.
I also love that, like, all the comedy things, you're like, no, I'm not intimidated about any of that. But
No, it
that's-
was
No,
cool.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But I am always, first of all, about any of the early stuff, like education, jobs,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. I'm always like, I get that it's impressive, but it's simultaneously not. Because all it is like, I feel... I don't know that it is evidence of any smartness necessarily. I think it's more evidence of like a kind of pressure that I succumb to coming from parents and school and whatever that was like, these are the things that you have to do
Right.
in order to be worthy of love, basically.
Oh, wow.
And like,
okay, so these were really heavy
kind of.
things laid on you early, and then you succeeded at them.
And not even, I don't even think I succeeded in any kind of like, I can solve a Rubik's Cube puzzle in 3 seconds sort of way. Like, that's impressive.
That is pretty impressive.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But do you understand like the distinction that I'm drawing where it's like, I feel like, and I'm not saying this to get any compliment. Like, I really mean this.
Right.
Like, I feel like what I was good at was swindling admissions officers, you know? Because it's like,
Still a talent of its own,
sure,
I suppose.
fine,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But it's like, I got into stuff like I can list for every one of the schools that's impressive or the jobs that's impressive a bunch of things that are also true that are not impressive.
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, I'll give you one. It's like I taught a class. I had a tenured job teaching law school.
Okay.
Impressive, right?
Yeah.
In New York.
That's
also impressive. Didn't have to
mind-blowing.
move to the middle of nowhere. No offense.
That's a character in a movie.
Yeah, right.
It's a really impressive
But
thing.
I taught a class that I got a C in when I was in law school.
Whoa.
Yeah.
They let
And,
you
like,
do it?
First of all, I went to a school with hard to understand grades.
Okay.
Like the grading scale, I think almost on purpose was like intended to be hard to understand. It was from 55 for no reason to 90. Also for no reason.
Okay.
55 was 0. 90 was like the highest you could get.
So 90 is an A plus.
Right. But no
55.
one ever got a 90.
Okay.
Like you would hear like lore about like, oh, there's like some justice on the 7th Circuit who like
Got an
one's
Yeah.
got an 86.
Oh, wow.
Or something
All
like
right.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so like the grades were so mysterious and there was like a literal legend at the bottom of the report card because it was so weird because it's like
try
nobody
to
understands.
explain it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started interviewing for my professor job, which I was hired by a school that was doing this out of the box hiring strategy
Okay.
where generally you hire from like a pool of people from the American Association of Law Schools. And it's like all these people who have like gone to Yale for preschool through law school. They got
Okay.
straight A's. They wrote an article every year that they were there, you know.
Right.
And I didn't have those credentials. Like I had some good credentials, but like I went to a good school. I made sure to publish a piece while I was there that was like discoverable on LexisNexis and Westlaw, which are the search tools that people use.
Okay.
And then a school that I would end up getting a job at was like doing this out of the box hiring strategy where they're like, well, I guess the past couple of years prior, they had not had good hiring seasons because people would go to like other schools instead. But they were like, well, we'll identify people who are about to go on the market for teaching, but they haven't yet.
And we're going to get them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they did like a search on the Lexis and Westlaws for like somebody who went to XYZ schools, published a thing in the law review of the school.
And then you were able to get in.
Right. But when I got the call or the letter, about like, did you ever consider being a law professor? Which I was like, yeah, I just never thought I would be able to because I went to the University of Chicago, which is like definitely a school that's very academic and people like want to be law professors. But like my recommenders, like the people who were professors there who liked me the most were like, you're never going to get a teaching job.
Wow.
Like you have no idea how hard this is. Even when I got the letter from the school that I would eventually get a job at, my recommenders were like, okay, well, do the interview. You're playing with the house's money, but like you're gonna lose because like, yeah,
they were just so brutally honest about something they were actually ended up being so wrong about.
They were wrong.
Adam Sandler's acting coach.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there's some famous story on YouTube. He was doing an interview where his acting coach took him out to lunch in college. He was going to NYU.
Okay,
and he told him he had a beer with him.
Yeah,
and he's like, hey, listen, this isn't for you.
Yeah,
acting isn't for you. And then years later, he's like a superstar. Obviously,
right.
He sees this teacher at a bar with his friends, and this is the time to burn him, right?
Sure.
To like rub it in his face.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He brought him over. He goes, hey, he introduced him to all his friends. This is the only teacher that ever bought me a beer.
Wow.
And it was like this classy way to do it, but it was like, this is similar to like, you'll never get a teaching job. You ended up getting the teaching job they wouldn't give you. Or they thought you wouldn't get.
Right.
Yeah.
And my intention isn't to burn the recommenders either. It's just like, I understand why they said it. And I actually think that like, sometimes when someone directly says to me, you cannot do something, like in a sentence, very clearly
just lights the fire.
Yeah. Because I remember like when I was in college, I graduated with 2 degrees because I was a philosophy major.
Yeah, I read that philosophy and then law.
So let me break that one for you.
Because philosophy is perfect for comedy in a sense,
Yeah, and arguably as is law. Because I feel like law is like so much about like, as is philosophy, there's like premise, right? And rules and, breaking. I don't know. Like, I think there's
approaching things with like set ways, like the ways we get into a joke. You can do this, rules of 3 different things, but then also ways to break those rules.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
And kind of write your own music. Basically, what I'm getting out of this is that whatever you're into, or whatever you get good at, whatever you get credentials in, seem extra impressive to people that aren't in that world.
I think that might be it.
And then the more they know about it, they're like, listen, it's almost like when I talk to someone that's not a comedian, they're like, that's so impressive.
Sure.
You do comedy.
Sure.
And it's like, well, if you actually saw, if I could like give you a 90-second TikTok review of my career, you'd be like, a lot less impressive now. That is a lot less impressive. Yeah, there was a lot of bombing there. Like, thank God you're decent at this because you definitely went, this weird roundabout way. So that made me feel a lot better.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, but I'm also like the one thing that I was going to say about the 2 degrees, the reason I brought that up, other than to say it, I guess. No.
She has 2 degrees.
Listen, my mom made me.
Liz, 2-degree Glazer.
But 3. But anyway.
3. Good. Oh, she went back. She came out of retirement, got a 3rd.
But is that I was a philosophy major, and that I noticed that I was like, I think that I can like graduate with an MA, a master's, and a bachelor's degree in the same like moment.
And you got them both.
And but like it was like a small department, and like it was the kind of thing where like if you wanted to take take a class. Sometimes there weren't enough offerings, so I just had half of a master's because of like there not being that many classes. I went to a school where everybody was like into being an investment banker and nobody cared about philosophy. And so that meant there were like 3 classes and whatever.
Philosophy,
so it was, it was like a logistical thing. But anyway, there was so I was about to embark on my final semester of school, which was 4 graduate classes, which was a load, for sure. And it was like, it was a lot of like writing papers about I have no idea what. And
that sounds like the hard part to me.
Oh yeah,
that's what I think. Yeah. So I never went to college, but when I think about what college probably was for a lot of people, is writing a lot of papers and assignments about things they don't know about.
100%,
which is terrifying.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's not like at the end of doing that, I feel like I know anything. Like similar to, I was thinking about this when I was looking at the buildings where I used to work.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what was my job? I think it was like being CC'd on emails I didn't understand. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Where it's like...
I maybe you can relate to this. Well, you'll definitely have more of a background on it, but I feel like the higher up the job... the less vague your responsibilities are, or the more vague your responsibilities are. Because I think about the jobs I had, and it was like unloading trucks and working at a warehouse, being a waiter at a retirement home.
Sure.
And it's just like very simple. They order food, you bring food, unload truck, you put there. Like your jobs are very distinct. And then anytime I talk to someone that had like an office job, like up there, they're like, I don't really know what I do.
No clue.
I'm just kind of here and I'm lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so. I have had fantasies, and I remember having fantasies when I was like, working in those offices of just like, wouldn't it be great if I understood my job? If someone was like, could you just put this there? And then I could feel at the end of a day like I did something that I understood. But like so much of it, and it's not like I do now, like I think back and I'm like, it was a lot of emails.
A lot of emails.
Yeah. Of just, I don't know.
It's interesting to think that in a big skyscraper office building that the like couple people that know exactly what they're doing are like the guy at the front desk and the janitor. Yeah. And they're like, I really know what I'm here to do. Totally. I know when I did a good job. I know when I biffed it.
Right.
And then everyone else is just in a constant state of,
no clue.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Man, that is so interesting.
Yeah.
And then so you did that for how many years before you decided to give it all up and go stand up?
Yeah. So it was, I guess like 3 years of law school.
Wow.
Plus 2 years of being in a firm and then 9 years of teaching.
So I'm trying to add it up. What are we at? 12, 15 years?
Yeah. 9, 3, 14.
14.
Of
all right.
Like total whatever.
Wow.
Time.
And then was there like a moment, like a pivot?
Yeah. Oh, very much so. So I had just gotten tenure after like 6 years. I started teaching when I was 27. I'm 44 now. And so like 27, I start teaching. The clock for tenure is 6 years.
Okay.
And so 33, I got tenure. Yeah. And around that time, I don't know that it matters, but like I was visiting at another law school, which is like a thing that happens if you're, in academia, is like you have a job, but then you could go for 6 months and have another job at another school and then come back and get your job. Like it's whatever. It's normal, even though it sounds weird.
Yeah, it does sound weird.
Yeah. It's like, I guess it's like this courtesy between schools where it's like, oh, well, we might need Zoltan for a semester, so we'll give you Liz. And it's not like it works like with a one-to-one like that.
Right.
But like people go on maternity leave, people go away.
Okay, so you're helping like fill vacancies and then coming back.
Yeah. So sometimes it's to fill a vacancy. Often it can be to fill a vacancy and or that school where you're visiting might be looking at you.
Okay.
And so what happened to me was I was for sure there to fill a vacancy, and I really wanted them to be looking at me.
Okay.
Because I was teaching at a school that was like much higher ranked, to the extent that stuff like that matters.
Yeah.
But like to me it was like coming from the minors and playing on the Yankees.
You're
you know what I mean?
to the next level of your field.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the Yankees were like, you're here because we lost a second base person. Like, make no mistake, we do not want you forever.
But we're giving you a shot.
Yeah. Like they're just like, you're here to teach property. And not like anybody explicitly said that to me, but like, it's this distinction that in that world, it's a look-see visit, which is like where you're being interviewed and considered, versus a podium fill, which was, you know, the other kind where it's like, we just need someone to do this class. And so anyway, so I was the latter, and I was teaching my classes and really wanting them to think I was cool.
Yeah.
And they didn't. You know, they were like, hi, you're fine. A little weird, but you're fine. At the time I was on Adderall, so like they had a point. So, but anyway.
Coming in a little hot.
Yeah, probably. I mean, most definitely. And so I went to school. The school was in Chicago, and I had been to Chicago in my life before because I went to law school there.
Great city.
It's such a great city. I love Chicago.
Big fan.
Yeah, same. And I had like lived there between law school and that point for like months at a time, whatever it was. And I knew that there was a big improv and comedy, but also improv specifically scene there. And I had friends who were like, you know, partners of people I knew in law school who were like big in improv. And I was like, I want to take an improv class.
Okay.
And so I started taking improv classes like through some of the time that I had spent in Chicago. And during this semester, the podium filling semester, I was like, you know, I really love this one teacher. I thought she was so brilliant. And she wasn't teaching anymore. So I wrote her a note on Facebook. I was like, I see you're not teaching. Would you do like one-on-one improv or something? Like, I just think you're a genius. And she was like, I don't know what that would mean.
Right. I was trying to think of what a one-on-one improv class would look like. Not that I have much of a background.
But she's like, what? Yes, but also like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, and this is weird.
Yeah. But we met for coffee, and I was on a lot of Adderall, and I remember took 18 shots of espresso before our coffee meeting because on a dare with the barista, like I was so caffeinated, it was beyond. And so
you could see colors that most people couldn't see.
Yeah,
18 shots of espresso and Adderall.
Yeah, it was like a lot. I was very awake. Right, yeah. Probably. Yeah,
God, that's like that Bradley Cooper movie where he takes that little pill. He's like, the stock's going up tomorrow.
Yeah. What is that? Limitless.
Limitless. Yeah, and he keeps taking these pills. Like, put money on Xerox or like whatever. I don't forget. But
so I told her that, and she's very rich now. But during the coffee meeting. Like, I mean, I don't know what I must have been. I must have seemed like I was on meth, which I was.
Yeah.
And I think she interpreted that as stage presence or something because she was like, I don't know what one-on-one improv might mean, but like, have you ever thought of doing stand-up? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, well, I think you might like have something there. And she's like a very magical person.
Right.
And I'm very grateful to her for this conversation because it came out of absolutely nowhere.
So her words meant a lot to you.
I mean, in some ways at that time, kind of like when I look back on it. But at the moment, I was like, what? No, I came for this.
Right.
And she was like, okay, well, I'll give you 10 minutes on my show that's happening like on this day and then 2 weeks later, like two spots, 10 minutes each. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, no. And she said, she's like, I'm just telling you, a lot of people would really kill for this.
Yes.
And now I know that.
Yeah. A 10-minute set just starting out.
Yeah.
Also terrifying, but also
right.
Like a great opportunity.
Totally. And she's like, I think when she said a lot of people would want this, I was like, well, I definitely know I want things that a lot of people want. Like, I think I can get behind that. I don't know what the process was, but I'm pretty sure it was something like that. And
you say this is sought after.
Yeah, right. And so I said, fine. And then, you know, like I knew that was happening. And I was like, I thought after that conversation, it was probably the meth and all the caffeine. I was like, I think I'm famous. Like, I think like I've made it and like this is it, you know, like I have my own show. I
already know the title of this podcast, 18 Shots of Espresso.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think 18 Shots of Espresso would make anyone feel like, I think I'm famous. I think these are all background actors in a movie about me.
Yeah, I definitely had that. And for the next, like, I think it was like 2-3 weeks before the first performance, I don't know. There's not a single person in my even not immediate vicinity that didn't know that I had these performances coming up. Like, I remember I was on a plane. Everybody.
Wow.
Okay. Like, I was on a plane.
I did this too.
Really?
For my first open mic, I did this too.
Wow.
Yeah, but so I can relate to this aspect of it. Yeah.
Like, I was on a plane and I was like telling the people who were sitting around me, and I'm getting off the plane.
I didn't do that, but I told people I knew. I wasn't going up to strangers going,
No, I was. I get off this plane and somebody gives me a note. I remember her name was Tessa because she wrote it on the note. She's like, "Dear Liz, I wish you so much luck on your show. It sounds like you're very excited about it, but in the future, if you could keep your voice down, you might." I don't remember the exact words, but like it was something. She was like, "I'm on my way to my mother's funeral," and like it was a lot to hear you going on and on about your show.
This wasn't a person you talking to. This was like someone else that could hear.
In like row whatever, in front or back from me.
Also, you know.
It's a lot. I know.
It's a lot, but also bring headphones.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean,
it's a flight. If it wasn't that, it was going to be a baby.
No, I know.
You know?
Yeah. And arguably, I was.
Wow. How loud were you?
Yeah.
Someone took the time to write a note.
Loud.
Wow.
Yeah, like I was projecting.
Are loud.
I
There's
know.
Jets out there.
I know. Nothing.
I can't hear my wife next to me. I'm like, what?
Right. Same. Yeah, she can't hear me either. I think it's
Points are loud.
Right.
That is never talked about in movies, by the way. Every time there's like a deep conversation, they're just like, I don't know. I'm like, you can't hear that.
True.
On a real plane. There's jets out there.
That's so true.
But wow. So you were so pumped. You told everyone on the plane.
Everybody.
You annoyed someone on their way to bury their mother.
Yes.
And then what happens with the show?
So, okay, well, there's the show, and then there was the show before the show, okay? So the show was great, okay? And basically, I mean, the actual show, I think there is like a story there in the sense that I had written whatever to prepare, and then I was feeling very nervous, like before the performance. One of my friends was like, just say something vulnerable at the top. And
that's actually
like,
great advice.
It's such good advice.
Who is that person?
Abby Sher. She's amazing.
Comedian?
She is, yeah. Okay. She's a comedian and an author. And like, you know, she was on the main stage at Second City. She's lived like a lot of lives.
Advice, because that's really good advice.
It's really good advice, yeah. And thank you for asking her name, because I'm pretty sure she'd be fine. Like it was great.
It's great
so
advice.
Anyway, so I did that. Thankfully, but also, but before, so she's like, be vulnerable. And I was like, great, thanks. Got it. Hung up the phone. And then I was like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I have no idea how to be vulnerable. They don't teach you that in law school, like whatever.
Probably the opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I remember I was like early to the show, and there was a package at my door that I didn't expect. And so I was like, I guess I'll just like open this and then I'll go to the show. And then as I take out the scissors, I'm about to open this package. I didn't know what was in it. And I was like, oh, wait, one trick to being vulnerable is just not knowing the answer to something. Why don't I just open this package on stage?
Wow.
Right?
That's a really great idea, too.
I mean,
different,
but like,
too. I've never seen anyone do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, but it was mostly because I was like, I literally don't know how to take Abby's advice in the absence of this, you know, whatever. And so anyway, so I did that, and it turned out that what was in the package were 18 vinyl suit covers, like, you know, when you like hang up a suit in the closet.
Yeah.
The reason being that 2 weeks earlier, my mother had visited my apartment and saw that my cat Mona, who's a white fluffy cat,
was getting all the
fur on my suits, and she's like, Elizabeth, you look like a cat. You can't like wear this to school to teach school.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put these vinyl suit covers. And I was like, okay, I will. And she knew I would never buy them, so she just sent them to me. And 18, because I mean, Jewish superstition is 18. It means, like, in Judaism, letters have numerical meaning too, and so the two letters that make up the word chai, which means life, are chet, which is 8 in value, and a yud, which is 10 in value. And so 18 in Judaism is this like superstition. And I was playing golf recently with my lesbian neighbor Vicky, who I love, and like, she wanted to play golf, and I was like, I want a lesbian friend, like, and she's the coolest. And so I was like, great, golf. Meanwhile, golf. Are you a golfer?
No. Okay. No, I'm not.
I respect the game.
Yeah, I respect it.
It's a lot of holes. Like, and I'm like, did a Jewish person who was superstitious make up golf?
Because
otherwise,
holes.
I don't know why. The only reason I ever do anything 18 times, like from an OCD standpoint, I used to like kiss a mezuzah.
18 shots of espresso.
18 shots of espresso. Yeah.
Whoa.
Right? And so she sent me 18 suit covers, undoubtedly because of Jewish superstition. Because I mean, it's just like to give you a sense, like people, if you give someone a bar mitzvah gift, it's like $72, and like anyone who knows is like, oh, because 18 or whatever.
I see.
You know. So it's definitely, it's like a thing. But so 18 suit covers. And I opened the package, and I basically, what it did for me in that first performance was it got me out of my self-conscious brain, and I just had to tell these people
the backstory.
I was like, so in so doing, I ended up explaining, I have a cat, I have this job that I wear suits to, and my mother, and here's my relationship with my mother, and here's why she, gave me this gift and whatever.
That is incredible. That means your first set was kind of like, that show they do set lists?
Yes.
Where they kind of just like throw, so for the people that don't know, it's a show where comics go on stage not knowing what they're going to talk about.
Right.
And then they take advice or suggestions from the audience before the show.
Yeah.
And then while you're on stage, you just throw like a word or a key phrase up there, and you got to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a challenging type of show, but it's fun. It's creative.
It's so
it's
fun.
very in the moment. The audiences can see that it's you did that.
Yeah.
You did that on a first set. You're like, I'm going to open something.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens. Incredibly courageous, balls. But
also
what?
Okay, fine. But it was born of such fear of not knowing what to do. And the part of the reason for that is, so that was the first set, right? Like on stage, whatever. But
at this improv show where you had 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it went great.
There's no way that could fail.
Yeah,
it's in the moment. They're almost seeing magic and spontaneity, and they're like,
good.
What is happening?
Right. And then the person who gave me the spot was like, we're gonna have to send you a package before every show. But the thing that happened before that was like the show before the show.
Okay.
So for that, like, as I said, I was telling anyone I didn't even know about.
I'm doing this.
Yeah. So excited. I mean, I was like, whether it was from caffeine, meth, Adderall, whatever. And when I say meth, I mean Adderall. It wasn't like I was
it wasn't
doing
meth.
extra meth. Yeah.
It was legal meth.
Yeah, like, because I had an Adderall prescription, which I took as like a jumping off point to like what I actually wanted to take. And so I was like pretty awake and excited for other reasons. So I was even more awake. I was just like manic and whatever. And so all my students knew as well.
You told all of them. You're like, I'm doing this thing.
There was no one who didn't know. Okay.
Wow.
And so there was a day, and this was in March in Chicago, which is relevant because it was like a day that there was a lot of snow.
Okay.
If we remember snow. And it was like one of those days where it was like a snow day, but not yet. So you're like San Diegan.
So I'm still
like
unfamiliar.
When it snowed pre-global warming, sometimes it snows like a lot in the morning, and school isn't yet closed, but it might close like in an hour.
Okay.
And so
it's
it
on
was
the
like
cusp of being a shutdown day.
And they should just close it at 6 a.m. and like save everybody the hassle, but they don't. And so it was like one of these days where I was teaching at like 10:30 in the morning, and school would close, but not yet.
Yeah.
And so I was at school teaching to like 5 students out of, whatever
Nobody
it
else
was.
came,
Right. Nobody else came. And so the 5 who were there were like, Professor Glazer, can you just do your stand-up?
Oh, no.
And if I had a set, then what might have transpired is like we start with 5 minutes and then we jump right back into regularly scheduled property law programming, right? But what actually happened was I did an hour and a half of I don't even know what. Like, I sort of remember it. Like, I remember at one point I jumped on a table and did like a Tom Cruise on Oprah impression, which is like Not something that I ever otherwise do, but like
it makes me wonder if like a sixth student was about to come in late, saw you on the desk, and went, you know what, I'm not going in there.
Right, totally. That's hilarious. So that happened. I remember, like, you know, and sometimes like in a I don't know, like a school environment or a corporate environment, somebody might have, like, they have like a laptop and then it's attached to a screen where there's a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And like generally, I would say 99.9 times out of 100, the reason for that is that a person has a PowerPoint presentation and it's already loaded and they're going to like present it. What I did in this moment was I was like, you know, it would be cool if I make a PowerPoint presentation as I'm saying it as like performance art. Like I remember doing that at some point. And
it's like an unprepared event.
Yeah. Right. Like just, okay. And so then, you know, class is over and I was like, wow, that was a great set. Like I'm going to be just fine for this performance. Like I could go all day, you know?
Were these 5 kids blown away, your 5 students?
So an hour later, okay, school's closed. And I had actually, I remember I had like a conferencey thing where I was giving notes to other professors.
Okay.
All I remember, I'm not a cursor in general, but I remember being in this, like, it was still snowing outside, but like they had this, you know, group of us, all academics. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about in this paper? Like just reading these people for no reason. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, I guess I'll rewrite that section. And it was like all this like critique amongst us. Anyway, I get a phone call while I'm in that. And I was like, fuck you, I gotta take this. And you know, whatever. And like I take the phone call and it's the associate dean at the school where I'm a podium filler, right? Okay. Trying to get them to notice me.
Yeah, trying to move up in the school ladder. Yeah.
And he's like, hey Liz, how are you doing? And I said, Jim, I've never felt better. And he's like, okay, well, let me just say this, you're not in trouble. But your students, some of them came by a little while ago and they're just concerned for you. And I remember I had the wherewithal at least to say, like, I know that this, in response to what you've just said, is going to sound just wacky, but like, I'm hearing you and I understand, but like the truth is I really never have felt better. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to be in touch. Again, you're not in trouble.
Yeah.
But like, we may need to have a meeting.
Yeah.
And then like a day or two later, I had a meeting with that guy, Jim, the associate dean, the regular dean, and then some guy, Cliff, who was like...
He's a psychologist.
Yeah. Well, and I had to have a multi-hour psychiatric evaluation.
Wow.
To determine like my kind of manicness, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have had the same therapist for 17 years. Okay. And so she's amazing. So there are a lot of benefits to that. But one of the benefits is that like, she's known me for like such an arc, you know, like when I first started going to her, I was still teaching and she was like the point person for these people who were evaluating me.
Yeah.
And like, so recently we were actually talking about this and she said, she's like, you want to know what they said to me?
Yes.
Yes. Right. I was like, yeah.
Are you allowed? Please.
Well, she, I guess, is allowed because she, right. So, so she's like, they said that they were trying to figure out like if you were like too manic to function, basically, like to have your job. But what they actually determined was that you were just really excited and maybe on some drugs, but like very, very pumped about
your
doing
show.
This thing. Yeah. Right. And like, that's not a disease, basically. Right. And so anyway, so I had that evaluation. I had the meeting with the deans. Ultimately, the two deans, like Jim, who was on the phone with me, and the regular dean I kind of swayed them, you know, where like, cause I showed up and I was like, I know I did something wrong. And here's like the, you know, corrected syllabus for the rest of the semester so that we don't get off course. Cause like, I know I shouldn't have done that during class.
Right. An hour of stand-up.
Yeah, like here's why I did it.
Right.
But also like I'm not trying to make the case that I was correct.
Right.
And I understand I have a job here. I'm grateful to have it. And here's how we're gonna like make this up. The deans bought it, and I did that. I mean, there's no reason that they shouldn't have bought it. Cliff still on the fence. Like I could tell, and I had a meeting with just him, and he's like, "I think you're just clueless." That's what he said to me. Which, like, I mean, fair enough.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Clueless.
Yeah. So that was, his read or whatever.
That's not even a professional statement.
Yeah, it was
Like,
what he said.
Clueless.
Yeah.
Wow.
He said I was clueless. So anyway, and I think in that meeting, by the way, I definitely like gave the ticket link to all of them for the show because it still hadn't happened yet, and I was still excited. And then after,
in the off chance they didn't believe you, like, this is a real show.
Well, no, I wanted them to come, and they didn't come, which is fine. They were like, "Oh, yeah, I think I'm busy, whatever." But then once I had the video of the set, I sent it to the dean.
Right.
And he wrote me back and was like, he had like very nice things to say about the stand-up. And then interestingly, he was like, and by the way, like, I don't think we considered you enough for full-time employment here. Because that was what I wanted the whole time.
Right.
I forgot about it because then I was like so in this stand-up thing. He's like, I don't think we considered you strongly enough. Would you like to be considered for a full-time job here? If so, send me your materials. And it was like such an interesting twist because and it was like, I think that was the real moment of the pivot because at that point I was like, oh, I have no interest in this job anymore. Like that was what I wanted him to say. And then,
but then it didn't feel like what you thought it would feel like.
100. Well, I also was just like, I was into another thing by that point.
Clearly. You brought it into the other thing.
Correct.
You were so into the comedy thing, you brought it into the other thing you thought you were into and had worked at for so long.
Correct.
And you were about to get this next level thing, or hopefully.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, I think we want to give it to you. And you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I actually don't want it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the story. And then 11
a lot
months,
of times when people are like, I got a story about this. Thank God, comedians will have a good story.
Yeah.
But some guy on the street, you're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Can we not? And because it will be nothing.
Right.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think like going back to your improv, I'm going to call her a guru. That's what she sounds like.
She totally is.
It's just like, I think you'd be more into stand-up. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You have a lot to say. You have and I think most comedians, that's why I was about to say, if you do improv and stand-up, that's incredible because I could only do stand-up.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do well in improv because I'm not good at I just wouldn't be good at that. I want to say my thing, and I don't want to work on a scene with all these people.
Yeah.
And but she saw that in you. She's like, no, you're jacked up on 18 shots of espresso.
Right.
You could go on for an hour.
Yeah.
You did go on for an hour in front of your students.
I did.
You should be in stand-up.
Sure.
And then all like the universe in a way between her, your love of it, and then your boss at the school essentially.
Yeah.
Kind of channeled you that way.
Yeah. Even with the presentation of exactly what I thought I wanted, that then I was able to like decline in this way that I never would have imagined. Like this was like a top school, like the Yankees being
dream
like,
job.
Yeah, dream job. And I was like, oh, like I thought I did, but like having done this other thing. And this was in response to seeing the performance. Like it had zero to do with law.
It's almost, if you go back to it, applying to a school as a student and they want to see your extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
And then imagine if you did that as like an 18-year-old, right?
Right.
And you showed them this incredible little 10-minute stand-up thing at an improv show.
Yeah.
They'd be like, this person's amazing. Like we would want them at our school.
Yeah. And it's like, and honestly, I mean, I hesitate. It's not like it was that great a set, like looking back on it, you know what I mean?
Of course, because it wasn't, now you're doing a different style of comedy, but I think anyone would be blown away by someone opening a package.
Yeah.
And then it was almost like watching like a Mentalist, you know, where they're like, I'm going to guess a number. You have an envelope in your ass. Let me pull it out. And then, the number is 18 or whatever.
Right.
But you almost kind of did something like that where you're like, I'm going to open this package. I don't know what's in it. It's from my mother.
Yeah.
And you do this whole set on it. It's amazing. Like that set would crush. You couldn't repeat it.
Right.
It would have to be a different package, different story, obviously. But like, of course that's going to go well.
Yeah.
Like, of course. Like, that's genius. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. But I mean, it all was very much like born of, I don't know what else to do, you know?
Right.
And so, and I say that like, I never said the thing that the guy said to me about not getting the 2 degrees, which was, I think how we started.
Yeah.
Which, because I was talking about like people saying stuff that's like directly negative.
Right.
But what he said, so I was like getting these 2 degrees and he said, you're never going to graduate. It was like some guy in my same year of school.
Okay.
He's like, you're not going to graduate. And it was such a bold, mean, negative thing for someone to say to another person. And I guess like, I mean, in response, I did graduate. I thought of him specifically a lot. And like, I think that like anything impressive that I've done, I don't mean to cut it down by saying, you know, stories like this. Like, it's not that it wasn't a great set, but it also like, it came from such fear. Like I was like crippled in fear, like paralyzed at home before I called Abby. And then she says the vulnerable thing. And then I just happened to find the package, you know? And it's like, it's, you know, I mean, that's not true for the graduating. Like I did the papers and whatever it was, but like,
you did the work.
Yeah. But it's like, I think a lot about that, like in comedy now, where it's like, you know, whenever someone's like, you're not gonna do this, you know, like, cause there's a lot of,
what do I call? You know, when you get picked for things.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, just for laughs or a showcase or something, you get picked for that. So anytime you have a gatekeeper type situation.
Right. And I haven't like busted through those, you know, in general. I've had like a few moments where like
same, but anyone important doesn't pick me. It's like the ones that were like, I guess I'll take that. Those are the ones I kind of get into.
Well, but like I know some of yours, and some of yours are ones that I perceive to be like, oh well, I would love to get picked for that, you know?
And it's all in perception of who you're looking at, which we shouldn't do anyway. We shouldn't compare ourselves to anybody else, but I do that. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't get any of the stuff that person gets. I get these things, but there's always someone else going, well, I would like the things you're doing. And it's just a chain that goes on.
I know. And it's like, so anyway, I don't know what the point of that is that I was saying specifically, but like, it's just, I guess like I do feel fortunate to have not the experiences like in the sense of accolades before, but all the like, cause that world of especially legal academia and stand up in the sense of like, oh, there's only a few who make it kind of mentality.
Right.
In both of those situations, it's very much that. And
you used fear as a motivator.
I think.
Yeah. Afraid to do the 10-minute set, right? Broke down, crippled, calling, going, how do I? Blah, blah. And then vulnerability, the school stuff, you're never going to graduate. You're not going to get this job. But like all these like no's in life, but you were able to use them as motivators to kind of break through. I use fear as a motivator too of what happens if this doesn't happen. Like, so I wanted stand-up to be my job because I never liked any of my jobs. And my fear was like, I'm going to have to unload these trucks for the rest of my life. That would suck. I want to do something else. And so like that was the motivator to just keep doing stand-up. And because I loved it, obviously. I was having a good time there. And I'm like, I'm going to make this my job. It just takes time to get to that. You use it as a fear to like prove everybody wrong, which is great.
I guess
that's such a positive way to like do it, even though at the time you're just flat out afraid. You're like, this is scary. These people are saying no, but I guess I'm doing it anyway. But, from listening to a story as opposed to living the story.
Right.
Very different. You're like, no, that's pretty badass. That's pretty badass, And that's incredible. And I was looking through, we did an apartment show, by the way.
We sure did.
Just to unglamorize everything we've just talked about. It was still fun. We had a good time. Fun. Our friend Daniel Starro put it on.
Yes.
It was actually one of my first sets after moving here.
Oh, really?
I think it was like one of my early sets. And I went, it was this stuffy little apartment in Manhattan somewhere. There's no air conditioning. I remember this.
There was some.
And this is the exact thing about like this room. You telling the story about opening the package and just talking about that. You were on stage. You were in front of the living room in front of these like 15 or 20 people.
It was in the threshold between the living room and the kitchen.
Yeah. And there was one bedroom door behind you.
Closed.
And you were like, what's back here? And you opened it and this waft of frigid cold air came in.
So much air conditioning.
And then they started laughing and you're like, why isn't this here?
It was so hot. Everybody was sweating.
Yeah. Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the audience was nice, but they were also, just like any hot audience, they're not going to be great. It needs to be cooler so they can laugh because they're going to get hotter.
Right.
But you broke it open going, why is there so much AC in here?
Yeah.
And the girls that live in that apartment started laughing. And they're like, well, she always has the AC blasting. And then you're like, do you make her pay more for it? And then you're like, we do. And so it just like broke.
Yeah.
It broke that wall of stand-up and show.
Yeah.
And just made everyone, and it really opened up the show for the rest of the evening.
Oh,
after
I'm
that
glad
happened.
to hear that.
Yeah, I remember that distinctly. I remember going home telling my wife, going, "Oh, the show was fun."
Yeah.
But this lady, Liz, really broke it open by opening a door, literally a door, that opened the door to the show, and then everyone had a great time after
Thank you, Zoltan. That's very, very kind of you. And it was such a genuinely hilarious moment to me as a person standing in that apartment for as long as we were. So hot. Because like the difference between her room and the rest was like, it was like a meat locker.
It's like 30-degree difference.
Yeah, it was so cold. And so, that was fun. And I still love moments like that. It's hard for me to break my addiction from them, I think.
Don't break it. Those are the things, those beautiful in the moment things. They're not forced. It's not like the people that kind of do planned crowd work where I'm going to look for a guy in a hat.
Yeah.
These are in the moment. They're beautiful and they play to your strengths.
Oh.
So anytime something plays to your strengths like that, even though you're like, I got these jokes I want to hit, they're good.
Right.
You'll get to them.
Yeah.
But don't let these moments pass up because they're beautiful moments.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I just I don't know. I'm right now in a moment. I got a note from a gatekeeper of sorts that was like, we love her. We want you to go deeper.
Okay.
And so I'm wrestling with that as a note, because if somebody gives me a note, like in the same way that all these stories, like somebody says something, like I will take that note and like not run with it like I will hike with it. I will, just live my entire existence like trying to incorporate it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I am a deep person in the sense that like I'm willing to have whatever conversations. I think sometimes what happens to me when I'm doing a set, especially when I'm showcasing at a club where I want to, I don't know, be liked and
of course,
regularly booked and whatever it is, that I get afraid of like, I don't know, just not hitting punchlines and stuff.
You want to do well.
Yeah. And so I'm really trying to, I mean, I've had a few people be like, just get the note out of your head, which I understand. And they're trying to be like nice friends.
Right.
But I want to, I guess the reason I bring it up in response to what we were just talking about is like, I agree that those impromptu moments are like everything. Mm-hmm. But then I think sometimes those take over what, like, because I'm like, I don't know what I want to get to sometimes,
Right.
Like, because I feel like sometimes I love that aspect so much.
Right.
That then the other parts of any joke, like, I'm like, I'm so bored with that.
Right. Interesting. So in a way, when you're doing these impromptu moments, you're not getting to your material. Yeah. And that material at the end of it, if you do a 10, 15 minute set, maybe they're not getting to know you when you're done.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the real important things when a comedian is done with a set, whether it's 15 minutes or they're doing an hour. You should, as an audience member, have an idea of who this person is, their sensibilities, what they think, what they feel, and get to know them. So I get. I think the note of going deeper is a great note for all comedians.
Yeah.
Except for some are so deep where it's like less, a little less.
Yeah.
But I think for the majority of us, a little more is great.
Yeah.
And it's just finding the balance, I think, between those impromptu moments and going, maybe I'm not going to go there right now because I'm trying to get into this other layer, you know?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a good way of framing it in terms of like, did they really get to know you by the end of the set?
That's how I'm not the only one, but that's kind of how I look at comedians. Like if I watch someone's 15-minute set or 30-minute, little half, whatever. Yeah. It's hard to do it in 7 or 8, but but do I know this person?
Right.
Or were they just kind of telling jokes?
Yeah.
You know? And even if people are one-liner guys, you can still get to know them based on those jokes.
Right.
But do you get to know the person?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I really got to know you today. I was blown away.
Yeah.
What an incredible story. Before we leave, I do want to plug a couple things. You have a new album out that just came out this year.
Yeah.
What was it? It was a little...
It's called A Very Particular Experience.
That's why I couldn't remember the title. A Very Particular Experience.
Yeah.
It's on Bandcamp, I saw.
Yeah. It's on like anywhere
you can buy an album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go check it out. Is there anything on YouTube you'd like to plug?
Oh, not specifically.
All right, social media handles?
Yeah, Liz Glazer.
She'll be tagged in all the stuff where this comes out, but give her a follow. And if she happens to be in your town, which I know you're going to San Diego, check her out.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
Thank you all for watching and listening.
Thanks.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Trekking heavier, traveling light. There's one thing that's right wherever I go. That's where I am.